when you're speaking about waste earlier, I got slightly lost actually in the economics of it. Can you just expand?
Yep, sure.
Again, just expand it a little bit.
Okay, I mean, but basically, waste.
The incineration.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if many people will probably be aware of the waste pyramid. The first thing you should do is reduce. The second thing is recycle, and of course, incineration basically doesn't do either of those things. But one of the really key things that's happening is county councils up and down the country are actually wanting to, and some of them already have, entered into contracts that says to this, and of course we're talking about private contractors, we're not talking about government-owned things, we guarantee to supply to you for the next 25 years X 100,000 tonnes of waste a year.
We, the council.
Yeah. Now, what they will all tell you is, and that's basically based on assumptions that waste will keep rising. Now, of course, we all know that we actually can't have waste keep rising, given the general pressure that we're putting on the planet in all kind of things. We actually have to cut waste. And waste is actually already going down. Now, what the councils say is that, well, what we're talking about is domestic waste. So if necessary, what we'll do is we'll just buy commercial waste to feed into the feedstock for the incinerator. And that will fill up any shortfall. But the problem is, if you start to think about it, first of all, it depends how fast domestic waste goes down, and it depends how fast commercial waste goes down. But you have these contracts and you have large penalty clauses if you don't actually supply what you're contracted to supply. And you can imagine a situation whereby people are running around saying, we've got to create more waste because otherwise it's going to cost us heaps of money, which is just absolutely counterproductive.
It sounds a bit like that, sort of the PFI business, where many institutions, NHS and so on, are locked into this huge.
Exactly. So, I mean, incineration is absolutely the wrong thing to be doing. And there's really good figures around in terms of if you recycle that waste instead, then what you do is you create 10, 15 times as many jobs, because obviously actually taking that waste and doing something with it creates a lot more jobs than just getting a tipper truck full of stuff and tipping it into a furnace, which is what you're basically doing with the incinerator. But, of course, there's also, the emissions of incinerators are deeply concerning. And I went to the St Denis anti-incinerator campaign in Cornwall, and they're amazing. It's this little village of 1,800 people, and they now have, practically every person in the village is involved in the anti-incinerator campaign, and each one's an expert on one little area. So, one of them will tell you how the incinerator is going to damage the rare liverworts that are in this site of special scientific interest just down the road, and they'll tell you all about that in amazing detail. So they're brilliant. So there's all those kind of, local environmental issues. There's the big environmental issue of encouraging waste, but there's also even for people who just aren't interested in all of that, you can make a really strong argument on straight economic grounds that to tie yourself into a 25-year contract on those kind of grounds just doesn't make sense. So, it's a bit like the nuclear energy debate. We've got all the arguments we've been making for years, but we now have this does not make economic sense, which will sway some people that the other arguments won't sway.
If I could just add a piece on that, I mean, we've spent some years, us and Essex Friends of the Earth, to give them credit, chipping away with freedom of information requests, going to meetings, inquiries, etc., to try and piece together what Essex County Council is doing. And they're doing exactly that, whilst telling the public the opposite. And it's another example of the way they've behaved. They've told the public that what they're going to do is have this fantastic scheme which is going to maximise recycling, and they use all the right words, about sustainable. In fact, the consultation they had on it, they actually had the fluffy bunnies pictures with green hills of trees sticking out, to sort of give the impression. We actually found out that the plant they're building at Basildon, 50% of what goes in the front door will come out the back door to be either landfilled or burnt. Now, that wasn't ever part of the public consultation. We had to use freedom of information request to find that out. We also found out by reading the 900-page contract that they'd signed with the private operators that the county council will own what comes out of the back door. And obviously what their intention is, I say obviously because we've read the other documents associated, they're going to sell it to burn it, because incinerator fuel of certain types is worth money. Now, I think the original intention was to burn it at Rivenhall and have a separate commercial operation there burning it. That second element is now in trouble, planning trouble and all sorts of other trouble, mainly because us and others have been banging on about it for so many years. And also because I think we delayed it enough that the financial crash came along and they can't get the finance to build it, which possibly might be what saved us. But the county council, the Basildon plant is going to be built. It effectively means recycling can't go much above 60%, whereas we want it to go to at least 70% within the next decade. And then county will sell this stuff to the highest bidder. So sustainability, yeah, I don't think so. Instead of recycling it, they're deliberately, contract-wise, they want this material in order to be able to burn it. But they never told the public that during the consultation. And to me, it's just, may call me naive, but to me, it's just that playing games with the public is just not acceptable. And I think a lot of the public accept that that's what goes on, but I don't think we should accept it.
And in terms of, just to sort of finish off the story about recycling, is a good news example of what you can do. In Islington Borough Council in London, there was one Green councillor there until 2010 who was lucky enough to be in a more or less balance of power situation. So she was able to leverage that one councillor, was able to achieve a great deal. And one of the things she got was a shop called Bright Sparks, which is where people can take, whether it's a toaster or a piece of furniture, something that's broken a little bit, and get it fixed. Remember, that used to be what you normally did when something broke, you fixed it, and now it's a kind of radical new idea that had to be pushed through by a radical Green councillor. But the things that go into that shop, before that shop existed, would have gone straight into landfill, or perhaps into incineration. But now they're actually properly being recycled, and people can either take them in and get them repaired and pay for it, or just say, resell this, and that's like how a lot of they fund the shop. And toasters suddenly get revived, and quite often actually it's just the fuse is gone, because lots of people don't know how to fix a fuse these days, but it gets revived. And that's the kind of thing we need to move to, is much more, the circular economy is the buzz phrase, is things need to stay in the economy and go round and round, instead of coming in one end and being spat out the other.
Build things that can be repaired.
Yeah.